Where there is righteousness in the heart, there's beauty in the character.
Hello my dear student, welcome back. Today we are going to continue to the remaining part of 2D. So in last class we had discussed about the toy kingdom of Monaco and what are those the taxes will be applied in the kingdom of Monaco. We already studied about that. The remaining part of 2D we are going to continue now. Now, it happened a few years ago that a murder was committed in this toy prince domains. The people of that kingdom are appeasable, and such a thing had not happened before. In the toy kingdom of Monaco, there was a murder. There was committed a murder. So, this is what the murder. It's not happened before. Because that kingdom's peoples are very peaceable. So it's the first time the murder happened in the toy kingdom. So it's created harms in everyone's mindset. So this is what the first time this thing happened in the toy kingdom. There is a murder. There was committed a murder. It's not happened before. The judges assembled with much ceremony and tried the case in the most judicial manner. The judges here they assembled. They tried to judge this case with a most judicial manner. ಈ ಕೇಸನ್ನು ನ್ಯಾಯಯುತವಾದಂಥ ನ್ಯಾಯವನ್ನು ಒದಗಿಸ್ಕೊಳ್ಬೇಕು ಅಂತೇಳಿ ಎಲ್ಲ ಜಡ್ಜಸ್ಗಳೆಲ್ಲರೂ ಕೂಡ ಅಸೆಂಬಲ್ ಆದರು. They just assembled to give the judgment for this case, right? Which is that case that's committed a murder. There were judges, prosecutors who were in that assembling. Those who assembled here, judges, prosecutors, jurymen, barristers. They assembled to give the judgment in a judicial manner. They argued and judged. And at last they condemned the criminal to have his head cut off as the law directs. Here the criminal's head should be cut off. So this is what the judgment of here the judges, prosecutors, jurymen and barristers who they given the judgment for the cut off the criminal's head. So here the criminal's head must be executed, right? So far so good. Next they submitted the sentence to the prince. So here that's judgment of judges, prosecutors, jurymen and barristers, it's not a final. They must be submitted to the whom? To the prince. Prince must be give a final judgment. The prince read the sentence and confirmed it. That's a prince confirmed the sentence that if the fellow must be executed, execute him. If the fellow must be executed means then execute him. ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಕ್ರಿಮಿನಲ್ಲು ಅವನ ಕುತ್ತಿಗೆಯನ್ನು ಕತ್ತರಿಸುವಂಥ ಆ ಜಡ್ಜ್ಮೆಂಟಿಗೆ ಅಥವಾ ಆ ಶಿಕ್ಷೆಗೆ ಯೋಗ್ಯತೆನಾಗಿದ್ದಾನೆ ಅಂತಂದರೆ ಅವನ ಕುತ್ತಿಗೆಯನ್ನು ಕತ್ತರಿಸ್ರಿ ಅಂತೇಳಿ ಜಡ್ಜ್ಮೆಂಟಿಗೆ ಫೈನಲ್ ಆಗಿ ಕ್ರಿಮಿನಲ್ ಹಿಯರ್ ದ ಪ್ರಿನ್ಸ್ ಹ್ಯಾಸ್ ಗಿವನ್ ದ ಅಪ್ರೂವಲ್. There was only one hitch in the matter, and That was that they had neither a guillotine for cutting heads off nor an executioner. The minister considered the matter and decided to address an inquiry to the French government, asking whether the French could not lend them a machine and an expert to cut off the criminal's head, and if so, would the French kindly inform that it would cost. So here there was a matters to hitching them, that's neither a guillotine machine they had nor an executioner. So here the French government has been addressed by the Monaco kingdom for the guillotine machine. So here that Monaco kingdom doesn't have a guillotine machine or nor an executioner. Say here that's a Monaco kingdom, they doesn't have a guillotine machine nor the executor to who is going to operating that guillotine machine. He is known here, he is known as the executioner. So the minister considers the matter. Here the ministers are considering the matter and decided to address an inquiry to the French government. First they address it to the whom? French government. For what purpose? They need a guillotine machine and export. So that's what they address it to the French government, asking whether the French could not lend them a machine and an export. That's they asking to the whom? French government. What they are asking? Guillotine machine and the export to operate the guillotine machine, to cut off the criminal's head. For the what purpose they are going to? Concerning to the French government, to cut off the criminal's head. And if so, would the French kindly inform them what it would cost, and French government must be here, that's informed to them, that's the what's the total cost of including to the export and export. That's here the Monaco kingdom just wrote the letters to the whom? French government, to the know the cost of a guillotine machine and exports and export. The letter was sent to the whom? To the French government. A week later the reply came. After a week they got a reply. A machine and an expert could be supplied. Here the happiest news for the Monaco kingdom, that the French government are ready to supply what? Guillotine machine and an export. Right? They are ready to supply guillotine machine and an export. So, and the cost would be 16,000 francs. The cost would becomes here the nearly 16,000 francs. So we have to know that first. In the Monaco kingdom, how many members or how many peoples are alive? 7,000, nearly 7,000 peoples, right? And what is the total area or land of the Monaco kingdoms? 7,000 acre. It comes to the nearly 1 acre for the per head, 7,000 acre. It is the smallest kingdom. And here the 16,000 francs, if we are going to dividing 16,000 francs for the 7,000 people, it comes to the nearly 2.5 paisa, means 2.5 francs for the each head, right? It is too costly, it's too expensive for them. This was laid before the king. So this is what the news, 16,000 francs letter or reply here the king received. He thought it over, right? It is too costly. It over means it's too costly. 16,000 francs. 16,000 francs, the wretch is not worth the money. So it's too costly for the whom? To the Monaco's king. So 16,000 francs means it's not a small amount for them. It's big. It is too rich. Is not worth the money. Said he. He means here the king. Can't it be done somehow cheaper? So we want that guillotine machine and expert in a cheaper amount. Within that they are considering the minimum amount, right? Why 16,000 francs is more than 2 francs a head on the whole population. I said that's more than 2 francs for the head on whole population for Monaco kingdoms. If you are going to divide it to the money, 16,000 francs to the each people in the Monaco kingdoms, it's more than 2 francs on each head, right? So it's too costly for them. The people won't stand it and it may cause ruin. So the people here, they are not ready to accept. I'm sure that they are not ready to accept because it's too costly. We are not going to expensing this much of amount for the developing kingdom or the development in a kingdom, but we are expensing that large amount or huge amount for the purpose to cut criminals' head. It is not a really accepted thing or accepted matter for the common people. Here that's prince decided to write a letter for the another kingdom, that Italy. So a council was called again. So you must be focused on these things here, that was called. So a verb section, right from the verbs will be raises this question. So a council was called to consider what could be done. And so here the could be done. So focus on these things for your grammar part. So a council was called to consider what could be done, and it was decided to send a similar inquiry to the king of Italy, right? They sent another letters to the Italy, the king of Italy. They just decided to the similar inquiry to know about the same thing of guillotine machine and export. So the French government is a republican. So focus on the 1 mark question. So French government is a republican government. Okay. Republican government. The French government is a republican government. And has no proper respect for a king. So they doesn't have no proper respect to the whom? To the king. But the king of Italy was a brother monarch. Monarch means Rajaprabhutva. Okay. So here that's also kingdom. It's a small kingdom, Monaco, and here another one kingdoms we can see, that's the Italy. So here that's a Monaco king thought to that maybe Italy's king give a proper respect and provide those things what that Monaco kingdom needed here, right? And might be induced to do the thing cheaper, because he is also a king. Maybe he knows to that he can be provide the cheaper things. So the letter was written to whom? To the king of Italy. Here the letter was written to the King of Italy and a prompt reply was received. And received a prompt reply from the King of Italy. The Italian government wrote that they would have a pleasure in supplying both a machine and an expert. They are ready to provide machine and an expert, and the whole cost could be 12,000 francs. So that's the 16,000 francs of French government, and here the Italy 12,000 francs. Okay. So 16,000 francs government of France demanded and Italy demanded to the 12,000 francs. $12,000, including a traveling expenses, right? Not only the experts, including to the traveling expenses. So it comes to cost nearly 12,000 francs. This was cheaper. So comparing to the French governments, that's the cost, and Italy it comes to the nearly cheaper, including to the traveling expenses they added, right? But still it seems too much. It seems to be much. The rascal was really not worth the money. Here the rascal who refers to the criminal. Okay, rascal means criminal. King is just rashed. Then he said this word, the rascal was really not worth the money. It would still mean a nearly 2 francs more per head on the taxes. So it's considers to the collect comes to total of 12,000 francs. Then we have to give a more 2 francs for on the everyone's head as a tax. So it's also worth. It's also too costly, but it seems to be cheaper, but it's also costly for the 12,000 francs to Monaco Kingdom. It would still mean a nearly 2 francs or more per head on the taxes. Another council was called. So that's they called the third time the council. Right, first time they called the council and decided to cut his head off, and they considers to the French government to provide guillotine machine and an export. After that they called again. It comes to the totally 16,000 francs. It's more. It's too costly or expensive for the Monaco Kingdom. Then they wrote to the Italy government. They concerns to the Italy. And then Italy government informed that 12,000 francs it may be the cost of guillotine machine and an expert, including the traveling charges, right? Then now they called another times to the council. They discussed and considered how it could be done with less expensive. Within a less expensive, how it could be done. ಕಡಿಮೆ ಖರ್ಚಿನಲ್ಲಿ ಯಾವ ಥರ ಅವನ ತಲೆಯನ್ನು ಕತ್ತರಿಸಬಹುದು ಅಂತ ಡಿಸ್ಕಷನ್ನಲ್ಲಿ ತೊಡಗಿರ್ತಾರೆ. Could not one of the soldiers perhaps be a god to do it in a rough and a homely fashion? So one of the minister said here that why could not one of the soldiers could done this? ಇದರಲ್ಲಿ ಒಬ್ಬ ಸೋಲ್ಜರ್ಸ್ ಯಾಕೆ ಇದನ್ನು ಮಾಡಬಾರ್ದಾಗಿತ್ತು? ಒಬ್ಬ ಸೋಲ್ಜರ್ಸ್ ಮಾಡಬಹುದಲ್ಲ. ಸೋಲ್ಜರ್ಸ್ಗಳು ಇರೋದೇ ತಲೆ ಕತ್ತರಿಸೋಕ್ಕೆ, ಯುದ್ಧ ಮಾಡೋದಕ್ಕೆ. ಅಂಥದ್ರೊಳಗಡೆ ಇವನನ್ನು ತಲೆಯನ್ನು ಕತ್ತರಿಸ್ಬೋದು ಒಬ್ಬ ಸೋಲ್ಜರ್ಸ್ನಿಂದ ಅಂಥೇಳಿ ಒಬ್ಬ ಮಿನಿಸ್ಟರ್ ಹೇಳ್ತಾರೆ. ದ ಜನರಲ್ ವಾಸ್ ಕಾಲ್ಡ್ ಆ್ಯಂಡ್ was asked. So here, to whom they called? To the general. So head of the military. So we call them as general. They called to him and asked, can't you find us a soldier who would cut the man's head off? Can't you find the soldiers who would cut a man's head off? ನೀವು ಒಬ್ಬ ಸೋಲ್ಜರ್ಸ್ನ ಫೈಂಡ್ ಔಟ್ ಮಾಡೋಕ್ಕಾಗಲ್ವಾ ಈ ಕ್ರಿಮಿನಲ್ನ ತಲೆ ಕತ್ತರಿಸೋಕ್ಕೆ ಅಂತ ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಜನರಲ್ನ ಕೇಳ್ತಾರೆ. ಇನ್ ವಾರ್ ಹಿಯರ್ ದ ಜನರಲ್ ವಿಲ್ ಬಿ ಆನ್ಸರ್ಡ್, ಇನ್ ವಾರ್ ದೇ ಡೋಂಟ್ ಮೈಂಡ್ ಕಿಲ್ಲಿಂಗ್ ದ ಪೀಪಲ್. ಇನ್ ಫ್ಯಾಕ್ಟ್ that is what they are trained for. So here in war they won't mind to cut the head of enemies, because they are trained to that purpose, to cut the enemy's head. So they won't mind, or they don't mind in the war. But here, in fact, that is what they are trained. That's the purpose. They are trained to cut the head of the enemies. So the general talked it over with the soldiers to see whether one of them would not undertake the job. So here the general speaks with the soldiers. So nobody is ready to cut the head of the man. But none of the soldiers would do it. No, they said. The soldiers said, no, we are not ready to cut the man's head, because they trained to cut the enemy's head, not to the innocent man. We don't know how to do it. It is not a thing we have been taught. So here the soldiers refused to cut the innocent man's head. They train it to the purpose to cut the head of enemies in the war, not an innocent man's head who is not the enemy of the soldiers. So they have the refusal to this was the offer. And another time ministers called, they gambled another time to decide how to do this within a cheaper thing. Thank you for today's session. We will continue remaining part in the next class. Jai Hind.